Well, St Paul's Cathedral are having an exhibition for their 300th anniversary of the completion of the Christopher Wren building. The Dean of St Paul's came to visit me in my studio, really loved my existing work, was very keen to have a piece in the exhibition, and decided that it would be really nice to cover the subject of the conversion of St Paul. So initially I looked at a lot of classical paintings of things that have been done covering that subject in the past. What I found is that St Paul had been hit by the light, was already on the floor beside a horse, and in a painting that's lovely you can create a great composition with lots of figures coming in to see what's happened. With sculpture you want something that's much more dramatic because it's very full of movement and life and energy. So I decided to try and capture the point at which St Paul was actually hit by the light that blinded him. I then had to work out how I was actually going to achieve that. So we went to a place that provides horses for the film and television industry to find a horse that was going to be able to rear on command. And I worked from photographs for my work, so what I did was I set up cameras all around the horse so that I could capture the point at which the horse rears. So once I've gathered my reference material, I have measurements and photographs that I can work from. I then have to work out a structure to build the piece on. I built a big scaffold with scaffold poles creating a skeleton for the horse initially, and then covered the scaffold poles with chicken wire before then applying the clay. So then it's a matter then of just applying clay to the skeleton and adjusting it until you get the piece looking like the reference material. So it's a constant moving around the piece and adjusting it to get the shape that you want from the clay. Once the clay piece is finished and complete, the next step to get it cast in bronze is to make a mould. So the whole thing is then covered in latex rubber and cased in fiberglass and resin to create a mould from which you can then cast in, well, any material you like really. But for the bronze casting process, the next stage is to create a wax positive from the rubber mould. So the rubber mould is coated with wax, similar to the way you might make an Easter egg, sort of a 6mm thickness of wax is layered onto the rubber. And then there are going to be seams and things from the mould that have to be tidied up in the wax. So once the wax is being cast, there's a lot of work to do to make sure that the wax is absolutely correct and complete, which I get involved in with the foundry. Once the wax is made and finished, the next step is then actually to cut it up again into sizable pieces that can then be cast. Those pieces have to have sprues and a funnel put in wax that give you the conduits through which the bronze can pass. And then it goes into the shelling room where a ceramic shell is applied to both sides of the wax to create another mould into which the bronze is eventually then going to be poured. That's a layering process and takes quite a long period of time, so it's a very labour-intensive process at the foundry. But once the inside and outside jacket are created on the wax, they're pinned through with bronze pins to make sure that they don't move, and then they're put into an oven to heat away the wax. So the wax melts away and then leaves you with a mould, which you can then pour the bronze into. The bronze pouring is actually a really exciting process because that's the point at which you've got the liquid molten bronze, and but there's nothing really much to see other than the excitement of the heat and the energy of the thing. But it's a good point to go and see the foundry and see what's going on. But once the bronze has been poured and cooled, the next stage is to break away the ceramic mold from the bronze, cut away all of the sprues that were there to get the bronze into the mold, and weld the pieces all back together again to create the whole piece in bronze. So again, that's a fairly labour-intensive and very skilled job by a metal worker to make sure that the final piece of bronze looks as close as possible to the original clay model that I made. Once that's done, the finishing process is a matter of applying chemicals onto the surface of the bronze with heat to create a patina, which allows you to colour the piece whichever way you like, really. So that then gives you a piece that's then waxed, mounted on a base of whatever you choose, and ready to deliver and install.